anorexia specifically has the highest mortality rate of any psychiatric illness. Although seemingly efficacious for some, the standard of treatment is failing a lot of people. All the people that I met alongside me in treatment centers, I still see them struggling to this day, trying to find this quote unquote food freedom and trying to find this like moderation of being able to just eat quote unquote anything and have no fear food.
Welcome to the Plant-Free MD podcast with Dr. Anthony Chaffee, where we discuss diet and nutrition and how this affects health and chronic disease, and show you how you can use this to optimize your health and happiness, both mentally and physically. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Plant-Free MD podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Anthony Chaffee, and today I have a very special guest, Ms. Kelsey Buchalter. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, who is joining us today. Kelsey, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
So for people who haven't come across you, can you tell us a bit about you and what you do?
Sure. So I am a nutrition network practitioner, so a metabolic health coach. I am the host of the Human Theatre podcast. I'm a TEDx speaker, singer-songwriter, and actor. And really, I've been carnivore for 6 years. It saved my life after struggling with severe anorexia, bulimia, and anxiety. And I have not been able to basically shut up about it and all things mental, physical, and spiritual health optimization and just lifestyle interventions in the treatment and prevention of chronic disease. So that's a little bit of me in a nutshell, and we can dive as deep as you would like.
Well, that's great and fantastic. It's nice that you're sort of an early adopter of the carnivore diet. Sort of 6 years is good. You know, that those sort of the early days of the wave that sort of started growing.
Yeah, quite literally. I was, before Porcelino even thought of adding in fruit. I even he would reply to my messages on Instagram, and I was thinking about it today, before Nutrition with Judy even started a podcast, I was in Steak and Butter Girl's first cohort that she ever started before she absolutely blew up. It's been amazing to watch the whole space grow. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, nice. So how did you come across it yourself?
I somehow stumbled into it. I was always very familiar with Prof. Tim Noakes and his work. I live in Cape Town, in fact, not too far away from where he lives. Nice. And the reason for that was my dad is an optometrist. And so in his practice, he sees a lot of diabetic patients. And in the early days of the Banting diet, I was quite aware of it through my dad. And in the middle of 2018, I was just in such a bad state. I'd been in and out of hospital. I was on the verge of being admitted again, and I really didn't want to. And with that in mind, I had a friend who I knew that she was at least familiar with low carb, and she had fibromyalgia, and she said to me she went to this specific health coach. It was just a health coach. And apparently that health coach at least knew low carb. So that was already a green flag for me. And I just went to her in the depth of my despair. And she basically just said to me, for the next 10 days, you're going to just eat red meat and eggs and salt and water. And I basically haven't not done that since. Nice. Just that first meal was enough to wake me up, and my brain lit up again, and I've quite literally not been able to look back. So that's how I've stumbled into carnivore.
Yeah, well, that's great. And it's great that you're such an advocate for it now, trying to pass on the benefits that you've seen in yourself and in your clients, hopefully too. As to that, what were some of the major differences you saw once you switched your diet over to carnivore?
Gosh, so many. Well, of course, in and of itself, I was so malnourished. I think at that point I was 20 something kilograms. So I think any food would have helped me. But I just think the meat and the fat, I just felt it in my brain. A lot of people speak about this keto clarity and this Zen type of state. And I just felt alive. That's the only way that I can really describe it. I just felt so alive, and I had never been that alive in my life. And I obviously just had so much energy. And I think in my case, I'd always been, I mean, growing up in South Africa, meat is huge here. The meat is so good here. So I'd always naturally loved meat, but I'd often restricted myself. In fact, at one point, I was even a vegan, of course. But I think it was kind of like, I suppose, ideal in my case, in that those were all the foods that I naturally loved. And like this health coach kind of gave me permission to go and eat them. And yeah, I just think also the quality of my thoughts, like immediately just I could feel like I had been, and this is probably why, and this is actually why I am so outspoken, is because I was in the standard of care for like 20 plus years, and I was failed time and time and time again. And not one specialist physician that I ever went to, and I went to them all. I went to endocrinologists and neurologists. I even had like MRIs done of my brain to see if there's something wrong with me, like mechanistically. And not one ever asked me, Kelsey, what are you eating? And I also tried all the medications under the sun, but yeah, going back to the quality of my thoughts changing, is that after I started eating carnivore, I was then able to apply all the years of therapy that I had been in, because I was going sometimes twice a week to therapy, and like, again, nothing, just left feeling hopeless and broken each and every friggin' time. So yeah, that's why I'm such a huge advocate for this, is like kind of reverse engineering my mental health. And I know Dr. Daniel Amen speaks a lot about this, but he has an amazing analogy that I use all the time. And if you liken the human body to the hardware of a computer and the human psychology to the software of a computer, how can you expect the software to be functioning optimally if the hardware is beaten and battered? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very good analogy. And of course it's true. You know, if your brain isn't functioning properly, your neurons can't talk to each other properly, they're not sending off signals in an appropriate way, they're coming off a bit too late or lasting and lingering a bit too long, you're going to get inappropriate signals, and you're going to get, you know, damage and cross wires, and that manifests as us feeling rotten. And so, yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I'm glad that you got so much benefit out of that and still are.
Yeah. And I think, of course, there's an element of gut health as well. I had major gut issues my whole life. So, I mean, the gut and the brain are basically like one thing. So that also definitely helped for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? You know, that was something that was pointed out by a friend of mine, he's a gastroenterologist, Pran Yoganathan, who said that, you know, sometimes we'll call the gut our second brain. And he was saying, actually, technically, it's our first brain, because that evolved first, that developed first. And then actually our, you know, central nervous system actually was an offshoot of that. So that's actually our first brain. Certainly has a lot of neurons anyway, and ganglion and things like that, you know, have a lot to do with how our body functions and how our brain functions as well, because there's a lot of communication between our gut brain and our central brain. So it's it's not something you can separate. You know, it's funny, but it actually turns out that the brain is part of the body. And so if you're unhealthy and your body is getting damaged by, you know, these outside factors, that affects your brain as well. And we sort of have separated those two, that psychology and psychiatry are separate from, you know, physical medicine. And of course, you can't separate the two. This is a very important organ. And when that gets dysfunctional, our thoughts get dysfunctional as well. And so that's just the expression of damage to that organ, which makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I also don't want to refute that there are, you know, things of situational depression and anxiety, like that's, you know, like valid, you know, experiences that can shape. And I definitely have had, you know, traumas that could definitely, quote unquote, have contributed, and they definitely did. But in my case, 100%, because I mean, all I've ever known my whole life up until carnivore really was just severe anxiety. And like, it kind of was like, there was no outward reason for me to be feeling like the way that I was. And in that regard, that's where I just keep going back to, like, with me, 100%, there was just, you know, neuroinflammation and a whole lot of gut inflammation. And, you know, fixing the biology, fixing my mitochondria was kind of the key to at least stabilize me. And then I could apply, you know, all the deep mindset, psychological work that is, is an investment that everyone, I think, should take. So yeah, that's kind of where I also am very outspoken, because I think for a lot of people, I mean, everyone's inflamed. Who isn't inflamed? And of course, it manifests in our own bio-individual way. But, if we can, in the standard of treatment, implement something like just like your diet, to stabilize someone, especially in such an acute psychiatric state. I mean, anorexia specifically has the highest mortality rates of any psychiatric illness.
Yeah.
And although seemingly efficacious for some, the standard of treatment is failing a lot of people. And, with all the people that I met alongside me in treatment centers, I mean, I still see them struggling to this day, trying to find this quote unquote food freedom and trying to find this like moderation of being able to just eat quote unquote anything and have no fear food. But it's, anyway, going off on a tangent, but it makes me angry.
But it's very important, and obviously there has to be a reason why people are saying, no, I don't want to eat that. And I'd rather just not eat anything than eat that. And then being able to get around that, or just not have it be an issue by going carnivore, because I've heard time and time again that people that have suffered from anorexia and bulimia have been able to recover on a carnivore diet. So, it's not that people are like, oh, I don't want to eat. It's just that I don't want to eat that. And I'm being told, what I think is that they're being told meat's bad, fat's bad, all these things that their body is telling them, saying, hey, this is really important. You need to eat this. You can't eat that. That's going to make you fat. That's going to make you sick. And you're like, okay, well, I can't eat that. And then this other stuff tastes like hot garbage and makes me feel bad. And so I don't want to eat that. And so you just don't eat. And, or you binge on something that you're not supposed to have, and then you feel horrible and guilty about it, and you purge. And then I think that when people understand that actually meat's really good for you, you can eat until you're satisfied. You don't have to starve yourself. You don't have to overeat. You don't have to purge afterwards. You can just be healthy, that people go, oh, thank God, finally. And I think it's the same sort of mindset. Like you're trying to find something that's, it's good for you and works for you. It's just you're struggling. You're being told a lot of weird information that doesn't make sense to you naturally, and you end up having disordered eating. But, I think we all suffer from disordered eating. I think even the recommendations of, hey, look, you can just eat anything. Let's just eat everything. I think that's a bit disordered too. I don't think that's healthy, and it's sort of giving up, one way of disordered eating for another, and albeit probably a healthier, lesser of two evils, but I don't think it's as good as you could. I don't think it's optimal. And I think that that's why people like yourself have figured out, okay, I can eat a carnivore diet, and hey, I can do this. I enjoy it. I like it. I feel good. I don't need to resort to those ways of eating before, but I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I think just the one big thing with eating disorder and in the standard of care and just conventional eating disorder recovery is that they kind of base your recovery on your ability to moderate foods, and all foods, including processed foods and junk foods. I mean, I was forced to eat chocolate bar after like sandwich after pasta, like each and every day. I even had to have freaking soya milk every night, like with like almonds and a whole chocolate bar right before bed. And that was my sixth freaking meal of the day.
That's not even food. Like
it's not food. It's not food. But for an eating disorder, if you deny that, or if you don't want to eat that, or if you want to eat healthy, it's considered an eating disorder, which I understand. I really do. I do see the validity in both camps. And this is where I say that I do speak about this with caution and sensitivity, because I do understand psychologically as well. There is a pathological, if you can call it that, or just from the eating disorder perspective, there is a fear of those foods. I don't want to be eating junk foods. Like I know that they're not good for me, but at the same time, I don't want to gaslight myself. And I don't think that I am any less, just because I have an eating disorder or anyone else has an eating disorder, specifically anorexia, I don't think we are any less like in need of healthy food. In fact, we probably need it more. So yeah, I mean, yeah, and like if you zoom out completely in, I mean, again, I think the carnivore diet was my first red pill into everything, and now everything's like I've taken all the red pills, and I can't unsee it now. But like I now look at processed food and junk food as like it's another drug, just like alcohol and whatever other drug out there. I know that there are many, but I like that to me now is actually food freedom because I don't even see it as food. But I mean, right in the beginning of carnivore, I was met with a lot of like, Kelsey, is this just like, this is just another eating disorder? Like, I even had to go meet up with Professor Tim Noakes to ask him, is in my situation eating a carnivore diet like okay? And he's like, yes. And I'm like, really? Because I can pretty much eat a whole chicken in one day. And he goes, yes. Like, yes, that's great. So then like I had that as ammunition to like go to my parents and be like, okay, well, even Prof said that I can eat a carnivore diet. So yeah, but I mean, still sometimes people think that it's just another eating disorder. And I do get what they're saying. I do get what they're saying. But I'm at a point now where I just like, I'm seeing it as if I had type 2 diabetes. Like I'm going to eat this way. This is my medicine because this puts all of my symptoms into remission. Every time that I've tried to moderate and add something back in, it's just led to a disaster and a flare up of so many symptoms. And of course, one can argue, oh, well, is that not just the eating disorder? Like you should be okay if you have something else. And I'm like, yes, but also no. Like it's kind of, it is there's like a little bit of a murky area, and this is where eating disorders are a little bit more complicated than something like alcoholism or a drug addiction, where you can just like throw away the alcohol. You can't really throw away your body, and you can't really not be in your body, and you do kind of have to eat. So it can get a little bit murky, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, but in the name, eating disorder, something disordered. So this is something that is presumably causing ill health, because if it's something they're perfectly healthy, people eat in different ways, and if you're healthy and things are going fine, people don't consider it an eating disorder. And so what an eating disorder really should only be constrained to are patterns of eating that cause harm to the individual. And so if you're and then there's the other term, orthorexia, where saying they're just obsessed with being healthy and, oh my God, you're not going to, okay, but where's the harm in actually caring about it? Used to be called health nuts, or people who gave a shit about their life, things like that. And so you call someone orthorexic, and probably call me that, but it doesn't make any sense in the context, because I just don't want to eat poison. Like, why is that disordered eating, that I don't want to eat something that directly harms my body? Well, it's not that bad. Well, one cigarette's not that bad either. So I guess you should smoke one cigarette a day, or else you're orthorexic, or else you're a freak and you're just afraid of the cigarette. Yeah, I am, because it's poison, and I don't want to smoke it. I don't want to drink it. I don't want to eat it. And that's is a koala orthorexic? Do they have an eating disorder because they only eat eucalyptus? I mean, my goodness, we should get them some counseling. Same with lions. What the hell are they doing? They're just eating meat all the time. What a monster! It's just simple biology. Animals are supposed to eat a specific diet, and when you recognize that, nutrition becomes very easy and straightforward. And if you are healthy and you're reversing health issues, and if you go back to eating what's considered a balanced diet, which I consider disordered eating because it's an unhealthy diet, then you're considered weird. But the thing is that people are reversing their health issues, their mental health issues, their physical health issues, their autoimmune issues, their diabetes. Why is it considered better from a psychological point of view to eat things that cause disease, rather than not eating those things and just eating things that are healthy for you and being healthy? Because that's what it comes down to. Does your diet make you healthy or not? If it makes you healthy, you don't have an eating disorder. I'm sorry, but or maybe in the early stage, but continue on for that. You're doing this for years and years and years and years and years. Start off on anything. You can be healthy at the beginning, but if you're doing this for 20 years, if you do this for a lifetime, is it going to cause disease? Is it going to cause harm? If the answer is no, then it's not a disordered eating. It is just food. It's just nutrition. And that's the whole point of eating, is just getting nutrition, not for the enjoyment of it, not to say that you can and just show that you can, have willpower and things like that. That's not what food is. Food is nutrition. And we have a very strange relationship with food now that I think, like you say, is more like a drug, that we eat for the enjoyment of it, the pleasure of it, as opposed for the nourishment of it alone, which is what it's for. And when you do that, you're eating things that can cause harm. Some things we know cause harm, and yet we eat it anyway because we enjoy the experience of it. Oh, it's okay if you just have a little bit. Okay, it's okay if you just smoke a few cigarettes and just have a few drinks too, but it's not as good as if you didn't have any of it. And so we're treating food as we do drugs and alcohol and cigarettes, which is, well, it's not that big of a deal, and it's just a special occasion, and I'm just going to do it because I enjoy it. And we're doing that with, bread and pasta and all these other sorts of, treats and candies and cookies and things like that. So I think it's the wrong approach to take with food and nutrition, especially. And I don't think that's disordered to get out of that whole debacle and just say, I'm just going to put nutrients in my body and then live my life and take my entertainment with my life as opposed to with my food.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I just keep going back to the proof is in the pudding. If anyone has questioned me, I don't think they question me now. Like, I think people know my story who know me, I suppose, and they can see that I am a completely different person and I'm like thriving. So I am proud, and I will be always a huge advocate of something like a dietary change because, quite literally saved my life and gave me more of a life. So very grateful.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
And then do you, and you work with people as well with their nutrition? Do you work with, who do you normally work with? Is it sort of everybody, or you have a specific demographic that you like to work with? Hey everyone, really happy to announce a new sponsor for the show and for everybody down in Australia, Stockman Steaks, who are delivering high quality grass-fed and finished pasture-raised beef and other meats, flash frozen and vacuum sealed to your door, something that I've been enjoying a lot of myself recently as well. They also have a great range of specialty items such as high-fat keto mince and carnivore beef and organs mince with liver, kidneys, and beef heart as well. So use code Chaffee today for a free order of beef mince or another specialty gift along with your order at stockmansteaks.com.au, and I'll see you over there. Thanks, guys.
I really, all humans are humans. So I don't really, of course I can very much have a niche with eating disorders and females and males. But at this point, I don't turn away anyone. So I'll work with anyone and everyone. I would be remiss, another big part of my story of recovery that I think is very important, because of course nutrition is foundational for all of us because our cells are literally made up of what we consume and assimilate and digest. But another big part of my story was the meaning and purpose part. And, soon before I actually found carnivore, I stumbled my way into another crazy experience, and I happened to land an audition for studying musical theater. And I, as a young kid, like music had always played a very, very big part of my life. And, things really got bad after school. And I started studying a few things, and with the anorexia, I just couldn't ever finish a degree because I just was always back in a hospital. I got this audition and I did not expect to get in. I was really in a very dire state physically as well. But I actually landed up getting accepted into this musical theater academy, and I got accepted. And then soon after that is when I went to the health coach and she put me on the carnivore diet. But why I did want to bring this up, it's kind of because it does parallel, but each and every day of going to college, firstly, even just for that audition alone, I didn't even care if I didn't get accepted, because those few days that I had to prepare for the audition, because I only found out about it like 3 days before the audition, and I had been out of it for many years, but I'd woken up with a sense of purpose. and something to look forward to, and something that my monkey mind, or this like black wolf, if I can sort of put a character to the eating disorder, the black wolf, it was distracted. I had something to work towards. And I mean, again, I was just so grateful that the day of the audition and those few days leading up to it, like I was just distracted, because my life before that was just so myopic and so focused on moment by moment. Like I was either just crying with hysteria, and like when you're so like severely underweight, like I didn't even have tears. I was just like crying, but like I didn't even know why. I was just crying. And then like at any given point, I mean, I'm laughing about it now, but at any given point, I mean, I used to have the longest curly hair. Clumps of hair would fall out of my, like, it was so, like, I used to go to bed wishing I would never wake up. Like, it was just tormenting to like be inside of my head. And so, against that backdrop, just having those few days of something to do and prepare towards was like already life changing. And I definitely felt a glimpse of what life should actually feel like. And yeah, so I went to the audition and I actually ended up getting accepted. And every day since starting, I graduated in 2022. And it was just every day was such a growth state for me, because I was like put in that place that was clearly authentic to me and what my passion and my some like strengths and skill sets were. It was kind of like Kelsey's playtime, and that was very therapeutic for me as well. So that, up and above the biological piece that was fixed with the carnivore diet, was those are two very big pieces of the puzzle, because I kind of describe it like the opposite of addiction, and they do liken eating disorders to addiction. The opposite of addiction is meaning and purpose, because the minute that you have something to work towards, like you're not being pulled back by the throes of the eating disorder or whatever their addiction is. So that is another big part of my story, and what I'm also very outspoken about, and what I do hopefully people find like their meaning and purpose in their life.
Yeah, well, that's a very good point too, and sometimes, well, certainly with addiction as well. I've known a lot of people that they just sort of haven't had much direction in their life, and they're easier for them to go down that route, and it was easier to justify using substances to sort of make them happy and bring them up, because their life wasn't really going the way they wanted it to, and they didn't really have something to look forward to and work towards. And so, partying and doing drugs and alcohol became what they looked forward to. And whereas, I enjoyed drinking as a teenager. I started drinking at an early age. I was like 14 when I started drinking, just with my friends, but it was very rare. It was rare that it happened like, a couple of times over the summer or something like that, a couple of times during the year. It wasn't like a big thing. And my biggest thing was like when I played sports, like I wouldn't do any of that. And I had friends that smoked, and so you sneak out of school and have a cigarette or something like that. You have a couple a week or something, but not during athletics. I was like, I never did that during sports. And even when I had injuries, and I'd be put on heavy medications like Vicodin or Percocet, which is oxycodone, for like an injury or surgery or something like that, it would be like, wow, that's amazing. Like normally my body's like racked with pain because they're just, playing contact sports since I was a kid. And you just don't even realize you just live with the pain. And all of a sudden you get these painkillers to get rid of, your injury in, say, your shoulder or whatever. And then all of a sudden, all the rest of the pain that you didn't even realize you had because you've just been living with it, it goes away. And like, oh my God, that's really nice. That's really nice. And you just really enjoyed that. And then, but even as much as I enjoyed that feeling and wanted that, I felt a bit slow and sluggish and junky. I couldn't work out. I couldn't train. And I was like, and my brain didn't work. And I was like, this is not going to work because I need my brain, and I'm studying, I'm doing my work. I can't have my brain foggy, and I want to work out. I want to go to the gym. I want to play rugby. And so I had that pull away from that, even though like works, it was a lot of fun, and it was nice to not be in pain all the time. I would much rather be active in school and rugby and sports than do that. And so that was always my pullback. And I saw friends of mine that didn't quite have that pull, and they got more and more sucked into it, unfortunately. And so that's a very good point. I didn't even think about that for eating disorders. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really big piece of all of our puzzles. I think we all deserve, even if it's just a little part-time hobby or a side hustle, I think, our birthright is optimal health. And one of the tenets of health is definitely meaning and purpose. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it definitely it makes a complete difference. Yeah.
Definitely. So have you worked with other people with eating disorders, and have they had success with carnivore as well?
I haven't specifically worked with people with eating disorders and put them on carnivore. I've sort of, to be honest, like as much as like I'm known for like eating disorder, I haven't actually had many eating disordered patients. And I also know that it is kind of like, it has been up until very recently, I suppose controversial.
Mm.
I know Judy has spoken about, in her experience, she wasn't allowed to, like, you could be vegan in a treatment center, but you can't necessarily be like low carb. So yeah, but I think the more that I'm also growing my name, because I've only just finished my NNP certification very recently. Before that, I was just a nutrition advisor and health coach straight after I finished studying musical theater. So I'm, really, I've just been working a lot like with a more like diabetic sort of, the standard sort of metabolic sort of things. But I definitely would, if someone did have to come to me, in with a similar background, I would very much espouse a carnivore diet for sure, or at least low carb. I mean, I'm not like a zealot or a dogmatic person at all. I would never, and especially with my background with eating disorders, I am very sensitive of food discussion. So even though it is my personal bias to be carnivore, if sometimes it may just be needing to be like a slower transition for someone. I would never tell them that a whole food anything is bad for you, because as long as it's not processed, I'm just kind of in the camp of camp whole foods, but of course my bias is carnivore. And I do believe that it is our species appropriate diet. Just, I'm sure you're familiar with Mickey Bendor and his work. Yeah. I mean, he did one of the courses on Nutrition Network that I had to do, and his lectures just were like, it blew my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, and yeah, I think Mickey Bendor is fantastic, and it's not that he's saying anything completely revolutionary. It's just he's just putting hard numbers to things and just showing, hey, actually, there's really hard evidence to this. But I was told as a kid from my teachers that humans are apex predators, have been apex predators for millions of years. I mean, that's what all the evidence shows. We have all these bone piles around human settlements, just animal bones everywhere with these butcher marks, and where stone tools have been cut into, where they're cleaving off meat. There's very specific patterns to when you're butchering meat off of a bone, and we see that going back millions of years, and then we have ample evidence of hunting, doing buffalo drops with the Native Americans going back millennia, even actually over 1 million years with mammoths. There's evidence of mammoth drops, of scaring a herd of mammoths over a cliff so that they crash and burn and then get harvested at the bottom. So this isn't like revolutionary. And I had actually just saw this guy, Chris from Plant Chompers, actually try to make this argument. Said there's a lot of straw man arguments. Unfortunately, I think he's a bit disingenuous, even though he tries to come across as very sincere. It's quite clear that he's very disingenuous, and he's trying to mislead people intentionally, because he's said a lot of things about me and intentionally got things wrong. I got a hold of my CV, for example, and started talking about things as, oh, I don't know what this is. And like the next page down, it talks about all these things, saying that, oh, it's just like you have the resume. So you know that that's not true. You know that that's intentionally misleading. So, and he said that my only evidence, my only argument was for people being carnivores was Mickey Bendor's work. And he said, well, this guy's a fringe something. He was really a businessman. And, oh, well, he's a businessman with a PhD who did his thesis on this. And that's more than you can say, Chris. And And then he was showing tapes of other paleoanthropologists saying, oh yeah, 7-8 million years ago, humans are eating predominantly plants and small amounts of meat and this and the other. And it's just and intentionally omitting the fact that those same paleoanthropologists say that we were then eating meat and switched to carnivorism about 2-3 million years ago. So, it is the common theme that humans have been carnivores for millions of years. Apex predators, by definition, are carnivores. Not been plant-based 7-8 million years ago, sure, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the last 2-3 million years and right now. And there's no argument. I mean, this is just a definition in terms. You can look up in the Cambridge dictionary, the Oxford dictionary, like that humans are apex predators. I even found where they, in a definition of apex predator from Cambridge University Press, that they used humans as an example. Humans as apex predators can still sometimes be killed in the wild by other apex predators, such as bears and lions and things like that. It's just like, it's a simple definition in terms. You hunt other animals and you eat them, and we do that. In fact, we're now termed super predators. We're the most successful predators that have ever existed. We've been able to hunt every single animal on the land, air, and seas. And there isn't anything. I mean, when we do this by the trillions, I mean, that's the whole argument from vegans. Like, oh my God, this is this massive hit on animal life. And it's like, what does that mean though? That means we're apex predators. I mean, that's the definition. And so I really love Mickey coming out and saying these things, because he came in at just the right time of just, people saying, no, we're, when I was growing up, people were saying, oh, you shouldn't eat meat because it makes you fat. It causes heart disease, this, that, and the other. But no one ever said that, and we evolved as herbivores, and that's the kind of animal that we are. They never tried to say, yeah, we've been eating meat, but obviously people were dying of heart attacks in their 30s and we just didn't know about it, which is not true, which is definitely not true. We actually have a lot of evidence to show that it's not true. And it's only been very recently that people have, then said, ethically, if you're going to gain weight, you're going to gain fat, and it's not, a nice thing to do to eat animals. And, that's certainly something. It certainly isn't nice. It'd be nice if we didn't have to do that, but we do. But no one was questioning the fact that humans have evolved as carnivores. In fact, the major thing is we became humans because our ancestors went carnivore, and that's what drove our evolution to where we are today. And now in the last few years, they're trying to say, no, we're herbivores. No, actually, we're herbivores because we don't have big fangs, like a gorilla, apex predator gorillas, and their big fangs. We don't have those. So, or a duck, a duck is a carnivore. So obviously, we don't have big sharp fangs like a duck. So obviously we're not carnivores. And it's very strange. And so Mickey Bendor came around at a good time to really just come on. Nope. This is really what the evidence shows. And in fact, there's a lot more of it. And here it is. So I'm a really, really big fan of his.
Yeah, I mean, in his lecture, he kind of said that humans are actually just obligate carnivores and adaptive omnivores in times when we needed to. And I think I also just go back to basic like physiology and biology. Like humans, in comparison to our primates, like we have much longer small intestines, and they house our digestive enzymes and all the things that is needed to break down protein. And, we have a much shorter large colon, and in the large colon, that's where all the, microbes are that, kind of just take cellulose and turn it into saturated fat anyway. So that is like one fact. And then he also spoke a lot about our pH, which is, even more acidic, I think. Maybe getting it wrong. I can't actually remember, but yeah, our pH is exactly of what carnivores are. We share the same pH. And then also our how we breastfeed our young in the wild is very, very similar to how carnivores in the wild do like breastfeeding. And then he even had like a whole PowerPoint slide on just how our adipose tissues are, like the composition of them and, you know, just the size of them is very exactly similar to a carnivore. So you kind of like in the lecture just like went through all of these things, like from the intestines to the pH to the breastfeeding to like so many different things, and like basically show that we are obligate carnivores and adaptive omnivores.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And yeah, I totally agree with that, you know, because it's, yeah, you know, obviously depends on your definition of these terms, but you know, we do have nutrients that we have to have that we can only get from meat and don't exist in plants or fungus. And there's nothing in plants or fungus that we have to have that we can't get from meat. And so that means we are obligated to eat meat. So you can get absolutely everything from eating meat. You don't have to go anywhere else, and it's perfect right then. And so you can just do that. And there are things in plants that do cause harm, but we can survive on them, and we can survive for a while, usually in combination with meat. And so, you know, that is, I think, is a much better definition of being adaptive or omnivores but obligate carnivores, because and cats too. You know, cats are obligate carnivores, but they can get up to 60% of their calories from carbohydrates, and yet they don't benefit from doing that, though, except in a survival point of view. If they're dying and they don't have anything else to eat, that's a survival benefit, and that's certainly a survival benefit in us. And so that has definitely helped us through some lean times, but that doesn't mean it's optimal. And I think that that's the only sensible way of defining what an animal is what is optimal for them, not just what they can do, but what is optimal for them to do. Does that make sense?
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to ask too, I haven't actually seen your TEDx talk. What was that about?
Sure. So that was very interesting. I kind of somehow stumbled into realizing that just in line with, I suppose, stress management and anxiety, the main nerve responsible for voice production is the vagus nerve. And so my TEDx talk was entitled, it's going to be released soon. I'll let you know when it's out, but it's Knowing Thy Voice, the Ultimate Biohack. So I kind of drew on the parallels of literally using your voice to help stimulate the vagus nerve and put you into a parasympathetic state, but then also figuratively knowing yourself, like, you know, turning within, and how that is such a powerful tool as well to kind of like hack your health. So it was kind of just speaking about the power of vagal nerve stimulation. And then I also, with my background of musical theater, you know, singing and stuff, and how that was such a monumental part of my recovery. And the more that I strengthened physiologically, the more my voice strengthened, and vice versa, actually at the same time. So yeah, it was all about that. TEDx is interesting because it is, well, the TED organization is very much vegan at the moment. So I know Michaela Peterson had a little bit of controversy with her TEDx presentation as well. But yeah, my TEDx talk was about the vagus nerve and the voice.
Yeah, well, very good. Oh, that's fun. That's nice that you got to do that. That's really interesting. I'll try to get that link for that and put it in the description as well for people that want to see that.
Yeah, I hope it's out by the time this airs. Otherwise,
hasn't been put out yet.
Hasn't. Yeah, it's still in post-production.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll let everyone know when it's out.
Yeah. Well, when it does, let me know and I'll put the link in the description for this. Yeah, very good.
Awesome.
And then as far as your podcast is concerned, what do you normally talk about on your podcast? Is it carnivore stuff? Everything.
There has been carnivore things. Hopefully I'll get you on there. I've had the Meat Mafia. I've had Brian Sanders.
Nice. Yeah.
I'm blanking on all the other people, but I've had many guests. Sean Sakanowski I've had recently. I'm going to have Prof. I've had Jane Ballin, had a whole lot of people. But yeah, I've definitely, it's all things mental, physical, and spiritual health optimization. So I've kind of tried to tick all the tenets of health, and get a whole lot of people from diverse spaces. I mean, I also had like a lot of people in the music industry and creativity space. So it's been fun. It's kind of like the house, I kind of call myself a very multi-passionate person. I just have so many passions and interests, and I can't choose one. So it's like my place where I get to, I suppose, express all of it.
Nice. Well, I've had uh, a number of artists and musicians actually reach out to me at one point or another about doing carnivore and interested in it, and sort of like, you know, help them with that. And it was actually kind of cool. I don't know if you guys know about this this group. I don't know if they made it to South Africa, but back in the, you know, some of the 90s, 2000s, there was like a hip hop rap group in America called Mobb Deep. And I'd listened to them as a teenager, and they were just badass. And then, you know, one of the guys from that, guy named Havoc, and they have some like absolutely classics in the hip hop sort of genre. And all of a sudden, I noticed he was following me. I'm like, I was like
What?
messaging all my like, you know, friends from high school. I was like, dude, like Havoc from Mobb Deep just started following me. Like, the hell is that? And he was like, what, really? And it turns out he's doing carnivore and really likes it, and is doing really well with it, and a lot of other people too. So it's actually kind of fun that this is sort of infiltrating those circles as well. And
So cool.
yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's so cool.
It's just cool as well. Just that even people even hearing about this stuff, and hearing about you know, carnivore and watching my movies. You know, you get people that actually met a guy yesterday, a really nice guy. He was at a rugby game here in Perth that my girlfriend's son was playing at. And so we were watching the game, and he came up to me and was talking to me and said, "Hey, you know, I recognize you from your videos and things like that." And it's still just very surreal when people recognize me and say like, "Wow, really enjoy the carnivore. It's really helping me," and all that sort of stuff, which is, you know, the whole point in doing it. But it's just, I don't know, it's still a bit yeah, just surreal that people know who the hell I am and care what I have to say. But it's nice to see more and more people coming to this, and, you know, just getting benefits and just being healthy. And like you said, you know, our birthright is that of health. You know, we should be healthy, and no species of animal, plant, or anything else is unhealthy as a species. No other species makes just tons of toxins in their own body that just kill themselves constantly. You know, that doesn't make, I mean, there are some weird things out there in nature that, you know, sometimes don't make sense. But there's like a type of pig, for instance, that has like these tusks that sort of grow out of its snout and just keep growing and growing and growing, and then eventually like pierce its own forehead and kill it. That's a bit odd, but you know, those are, but otherwise they're very healthy, and they're not just like metabolically sick with diabetes and, you know, having heart attacks and strokes and, you know, getting, you know, rheumatoid arthritis, you know, limping around the Serengeti and things like that. Just that doesn't happen. But we seem to have accepted that as normal in humans, and that doesn't make any sense from a biological point of view, from an evolutionary biology point of view, especially. Just that doesn't make sense. We're descended from the winners. We're descended from the survivors. We're descended from the people who made it and were healthy enough to make it. Where there was a lot of people died and weren't able to reproduce, died in infancy or before they could have kids, or shortly thereafter, and then their whole families died and got wiped out in a plague or a war or something. We're all descended from the survivors by definition. And so the idea that we're all just sick as a species, and just the human race is a sickly, damaged, disease, and dysfunctional species of animal makes no sense. And so we should be healthy, and we should be able to be healthy without modern medicine and a bunch of pills and treatments to get us there. We should just be healthy. And if there's an accident or an emergency or a trauma, we should have medicine and medical technologies available to help us. But otherwise, we should just be able to just live our lives and be healthy. And so I think it's just, you know, that eating a normal diet for humans is the best way to get there. At least 95% of it. It's just such a huge part of the puzzle. Obviously, there's other things that are important, but this is one of the biggest ones that we can change so easily. And like it's not always easy to do, but it is simple. It's very simple and straightforward. You just make this change, these problems go away. I see it in my patients all the time. I mean, I have hundreds and hundreds of patients that I've put on a carnivore diet directly, personally, and I've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of other tens, hundreds of thousands. And like you know, a lot of them had been vegan and plant-based and tried all these different diets, and they weren't healthy and they weren't working. And you know, the more they listen to the diet advice of eat less meat, eat less fat, eat less in general, move more, they, you know, just got worse and worse. And I mean, and what is anorexia? It besides the classic advice, which is eat less, move more. It's like, well, anorexics really did that, and they took that to the extreme. It's like, okay, I'm not going to eat anything at all, and I'm going to exercise all the time. Okay, well, that's bad advice, isn't it? And so, you know, if something were good advice, you should be able to extend that out, and at the extreme, still be healthy, like eating a carnivore diet. You eat fatty meat until it stops tasting good. You get the right ratio of fat, 1 to 2 grams of fat to 1 gram of protein. You eat as many times a day as you need to for your body and what's your body telling you, and you get on with your life. And you can do that when you're losing weight, when you want to put on weight, when you're older, when you're younger, when you have autoimmune issues, when you have diabetes, or you're just trying to maintain healthy life. It's the same all the time. And so, you know, it should just be a natural, normal process. And hopefully we can get more people back on board and healthy again. Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivorebar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivorebar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products that will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. I don't think people can carry on much longer just living like this. I think more and more people are. Yeah. And I mean, I am so grateful for you as well and all the amazing work that you've been doing. I really hope you get to go on Andrew Huberman.
That'd be cool.
Like, that would be so cool.
Well, it'd be amazing.
Because
I really, yeah, sorry, go on.
No, I was gonna say I was listening to one of your Q&As and you were like, "Oh my gosh, did Andrew like someone said that Andrew Huberman and I was like, oh, I hope this is possible." Because I mean, Chris Palmer on Andrew Huberman was amazing. Like I was like, that's amazing. Even Robert Lustig. But yeah, I'm vouching that I hope that you get on there. That would be amazing.
That would be nice. And yeah, I'm a big fan of Andrew Huberman. He did pop onto one of my Instagram lives and sort of made a comment in there, sort of, you know, voiced his interest about getting in touch and talking about the carnivore diet. And I was like, and that was actually early on. That was like 2 years ago. So it was like sort of 6 months after I sort of started my channel and was really talking about this. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning and I had just come off shift and I'd been operating until like, I don't know, 11 or 12. And I just came back and I was just like, well, I'm not going to have a chance to sort of do a live or something. And I should probably just do one. And, you know, still sort of wired from, you know, operating and working all day. So I sort of did that as a wind down and I was so out of it. And all of a sudden people are like, it's just like, you Andrew Huberman is here. You pay attention. I was like, oh, what? Oh, Jesus. And I was on like multiple different phones because you had to be on like TikTok. You had to be on like one phone and I had my US phone and then my Australian phone. I was on Instagram and then I was like on YouTube with my computer. So annoying. You can do that better now on the computer, but before it was just you had to have different devices going. So I'm like looking around at all these different things, and I just didn't see them. Like, are you saying this? You know, and so actually, he, you know, we got in touch, and he was interested in starting a carnivore diet and trying it for a month. We didn't end up being able to coordinate a time to talk on the phone, and so he had started a carnivore diet. And he was going to do blood tests and, you know, do a little N of 1 self experiment. He got a couple weeks into it and his energy levels weren't that great. And he talked about this on Joe Rogan and he talked about how his energy levels weren't great in the gym. And so otherwise he had sort of good responses, but like he wasn't getting the big workouts that he wanted in the gym. And that's something that he really enjoys doing. And so we talked to Paul Saladino, and unfortunately got told to eat a whole bunch of fruit and honey. And he
Oh,
said it actually made him feel a
yeah.
lot worse, and he felt a lot
Oh,
worse. And he just
wow.
said, "Look, maybe this is just can this because it was hurting his workouts,
Mm,
and then adding in fruit and honey was just like that was a non-starter." I really wish that he had gotten in touch with me. I actually sent him a text and never heard back from him afterwards. But I said, "Hey, this is why that could have happened." And there's obviously an adaptation phase that you
mm,
have to go through. Prof Noakes has studied that meticulously,
yeah.
and for the sort of the weekend warrior sort of athlete, you need sort of like 6 to 8 weeks before you're going to start really feeling great. And as like a high performance athlete, it's going to be longer than that, and
Mm,
potentially. I found in myself that after about 2 weeks, I really started feeling a lot better. But that's when I really started noticing it take off. But it got better and better and better and better and better as I went. And I noticed that with a lot of athletes. Ryan Talbot, who's a 3-time All-American, NCAA Division I All-American in the decathlon, and he went carnivore halfway through his season and transition. He said he felt a bit off for the first 2 weeks, but it
mm.
didn't actually hurt his performance. And then after that, he just took off and became an All-American that year, won the Big Ten competition in the decathlon, and then was All-American 2 years after that, and actually just missed out on going to the Olympics this year for the USA team. He came in 8th,
Wow.
and yeah, so it was fantastic, right? And so I think that was probably what was going on, was that there's just sort of a bit of an adaptation phase. Could have been other things, when he was eating, if he was eating before he worked out, wasn't getting as much water, not eating enough fat, all these sorts of things that
Yeah, and salt
um,
even can help.
salt, yeah, absolutely, yeah, especially early on. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I would it would have been fun to talk to him about that and get him on there and succeed with it, and
Yes.
been like, oh my god, yeah, this is amazing, and then have him very seriously look into it, and maybe even bring some studies into his lab,
For
and see what
sure.
the hell's going on. That would have been great. So I'm fingers crossed that we can pique his interest again.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's also something that I think a lot of people, especially athletes or bodybuilders, it does take time for the body to adapt, especially
Yeah.
when most of your life you have been running off of glucose.
Mhm.
It can take a lot longer than a month,
Yep.
can take years for some people. Like Rome wasn't built in a day. So, that is a pity, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anecdotes, N of one anecdotes can help,
Yeah.
I suppose.
Well, and that's the thing. It can go one direction or the other. If his N of one was good, then that could have brought him into, one direction.
Yeah.
His N of one didn't go so well. So he's just like, well, all right. And even though there's a lot of other people, I mean, there was enough, there was enough, there were enough people benefiting from this and having pretty
Yeah.
remarkable uh, results with it, that it interested him as a professor of medicine at Stanford, going like, okay, well, maybe I'll try it and see what it's like. And if I would just, yeah, I really hope that he could see this or something else and get interested in it again and give it another try, because I know that he'll feel much better with it given time and eating proper amounts. And if you just eat a big fatty meal during the day, you're going to be tired and lethargic during the day. I cannot work out if I've eaten a big steak. It's just not going to happen. Like, it's just like I'm on, I'm on siesta time. Like, my body's just like, yeah, that's not
Yeah.
going to happen. Like, it's like, what are you doing? Like, you've already gotten your kill. You've already gotten meat. Like, just relax. Like, don't be an overachiever, and so I work out on an empty stomach always. And when I don't do that, I have terrible workouts, and I don't enjoy them. And when I'm fasted, when I'm just haven't eaten that day, I feel fantastic. I don't want to leave the gym. I just want to work out and just go crazy in there. And then I eat a big meal after that, and it's just a perfect sort of combination for me. And so, yeah, well, fingers crossed, you sort of get them around and get more studies out there and more data. I'm actually looking to publish some case series from my own patient populations, because they've just reversed things.
Amazing.
are not supposed to be reversible. And so if we can get those published out there and just show, hey, look, this is what's happening on the ground with clinicians treating patients, and these are the results we're getting, and it when you get enough of that out there, it demands larger studies, larger experimental interventional trials. And that's just what we're working for. I'm already convinced that there's plenty of evidence. There's more than enough evidence to suggest this as a safe approach for my patients, and it works and it gets real results. And that's what Hippocrates said, is that don't just go off the dogma. And back then it was like, praying to Apollo and things like that. No, do things that actually work. Don't just pray and hope it happens. Just do what's in front of you. You do this, it works. You do that, it doesn't work. You don't do that, you do this other thing. That's what you do. It's adding that scientific method to medicine, and that's what this is. Why am I going to do the old treatment that just prolongs the suffering and makes things slowly get worse, but inevitably get worse, and then they need surgeries and get organs removed and amputations, and they get sicker and sicker until they just die out of frustration and misery. And when I can put them on something like this, and it sorts them out like that, objectively, their blood's improved, their symptoms improve, their disease goes into remission or goes in that direction. And I can see this, and I have clear evidence of that I can show to a board, and I can show and I can publish, and I can say, hey, look, I made this intervention and their testosterone normalized. They came out of menopause at 56. And I have about 6 patients who came out of menopause in their mid 50s by going on a carnivore diet. I have, I don't know how many dozens of men whose testosterone have gone up from basically needing testosterone replacement to now being normal for a 25-year-old man in their 60s and 70s. Diabetes just goes away. I mean, that's becoming more commonly known now. Autoimmunity just disappears as well. Blood pressure medications, don't, get, blood pressure issues get improved to the point that they don't really need blood pressure medication for many of them. And, the list just goes on and on and on and on and on. So I can show that objectively, that these people are getting better. I know they're not getting harmed by it because I can show that objectively. They're saying they feel better. Their symptoms are going away. And all of their lab tests are improving, that they're getting better. Their fatty liver disease is going away. All their kidney issues are going away. Their cognition scores on the mini mental state exam, that's improving on all these things. Like this is objective evidence that this is getting better, and that's what we're supposed to do. So why would I just do the other thing, praying to Apollo, we've always done this and Apollo will give, and that's what the guidelines are. Oh, just follow the guidelines. You're following something blindly, even though you have evidence in front of you that it's not as good as something else. Like that's irresponsible. And it's unethical, frankly. And so, if you see this, as my friend Dr. Gary Fettke says, you can't unsee it. And you see this work, you see this reverse diabetes, you see it reverse kidney failure. And when we're seeing this in actual studies in humans and animals now, that this does reverse kidney diseases, diabetic kidney retinopathy, or diabetic nephropathy, and even polycystic kidney disease. This is shown out of University of California in Santa Barbara with Professor Thomas Wimes. And so you're seeing this in real time completely revolutionize people's health. And you say, no, the guidelines say this other thing, so we're going to do that. That's unethical in my book. Now, if you don't know about it, sure. But if you've seen it, you can't unsee it, and you can't go back to praying to Apollo. You just can't.
Yeah. I mean, just speaking about the Hippocratic Oath, like it is doing harm. There's so much harm being done. It's actually a crime. And I mean, I always just speak about the body's innate ability to heal itself when put in the right environment to do so. And obviously part of that, the biggest modifier is nutrition. Like just thinking that it's like you should earn your surgery. If you're going to have a friggin' organ removed, like you need to earn your surgery. Like, yeah, it's so backwards. Because that's not our natural state, as we've already alluded to. Now, of course, I'm not refuting that there are instances where these things need to happen, and thank goodness for modern medicine. But yeah, I mean, I have people that I know that are like proud at how many medications they take every day. It's like, it's so backwards. It's so backwards. Yeah. I have so much to say, but it makes me angry.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, we have to do this and have,
Yeah.
I mean, if nothing else, then, talk about these things on podcasts and YouTube, and at least let people know that they can get healthy, and then you just try it, and you try and you get better. Great. If you try it and you don't like it, fine, but at least you know about it, and at least you know that you can try it. And, going, as you said, with Hippocrates and the Hippocratic Oath, and, do no harm, this is doing harm. It's definitely doing harm. And if you see those two things and you see, well, standard of care is, gets result A, and, doing, changing someone's diet gets result B, and result B is wildly better, you actually are doing harm if you don't do that. If you choose, no, I'm going to go standard of care. You're walking on very thin moral grounds there, and it's I don't think you're doing the right thing. There's a couple other quotes attributed to Hippocrates as well, which I really like, which are obviously, let food be thy medicine and medicine thy food. I mean, he was calling this 2,500 years ago.
I know.
And but then the other one that goes with that, which I think is very very poignant, is he said, before you try to heal someone, first ask them if they're willing to give up that which is making them sick. And that's what it is. Our natural state is that of health. And so it's basically just stop hurting yourself and your body will get on with being healthy. And I think that's so important to understand. We're not flawed physical beings. I mean, we're flawed, from a spiritual point of view and, all that sort of stuff. But physically, biologically, we are not flawed as a species. And so if we're having massive problems and diseases and disorders, it's because we are doing something to ourselves. And or something in our environment that's damaging our biology and physiology. And so you just remove that, problem goes away. And that's something that is very important to understand. And, so they understood that. Hippocrates understood that. Even the ancient Egyptians knew that. Something like, it's a quote, I don't know if they know how old this is, but it's thousands of years old, probably a couple thousand years older than Hippocrates, because ancient Egypt was, ancient Egyptians were studying ancient Egyptians 2,000 years before them. And now, Cleopatra is closer to us and the iPhone than she was to the building of the pyramids, which is kind of crazy. And she was Macedonian. So that's something not everybody understands. But the saying in ancient Egypt was, half of what you eat feeds you, and half of what you eat feeds your doctor. And I think that is just such a funny line, because it's just like, yeah, half
So
of that's
true.
for you, and the other half's making you fat and sick, and you have to go to your doctor to get sorted out, and you have to pay him. And so that's feeding him and his family. And I think it's just such a great line that would do very well to remember.
Yeah, 100%. That needs to even be made into a movie somehow. Just revolving around that line. Hectic.
Yeah. Try to get that worked in somewhere. There's a few carnivore documentaries going on. Maybe we can see if we can get that worked in somewhere.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah.
Well, Kelsey, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your story. And I'm sure everybody has really appreciated, got a lot out of it. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor. And thank you for the work that you're doing. I mean, my whole family is a huge fan. My little brother, who's still in school, he goes to his science teachers all the time, speaks to them, all of his teachers, and he shares, especially, I think the most shared episode that he's from yours has been you with Thomas Seyfried, because a lot of his teachers, their family members have had cancer, and then he's He's a big fan. So
Oh, well, thank you very much. Well, tell him I said I.
yeah,
And
I
yeah,
will.
the cancer one's a big one too, because I mean, cancer used to be extremely rare, and people would just be like, "Oh goodness, oh gosh," it was like just a curse on the family. It's like, "Oh no, oh my goodness, someone in that family got cancer. That's just so horrible." Now, 1 in 2 people will get cancer at
I
some point
know.
in their life.
Scary,
Insane.
scary,
So that's not just,
scary.
oh, we're living longer. The founding fathers of America died in their 80s and 90s, and they were born in the
Yeah,
mid 1700s, unless they were killed by something. John
yeah.
Adams was 92. He was born in the mid 1700s. Jefferson was 84. And so, this is, people just aren't just living longer. In fact, um, if you take out childhood, infant mortality and the violent deaths from wars and, violence and things like that, people were actually living longer previously, historically, than they are now. And they had none of this plague of chronic diseases that we're treating now. I mean, some of it existed, but like heart disease practically didn't exist at all. I mean, there wasn't a single death from heart attack reported in the literature in all of America before 1912. That was the very first heart attack in American history, was in 1912. And then 15, 20 years later, it's the #1 killer in America.
Mm.
That doesn't happen by chance. And it certainly didn't happen from eating meat, because we're eating more meat in the 1800s and before
Mm.
than we were in the 1910s, 20s, and 30s. And we're eating the least amount of meat in 200 years. It's sort of a U-shaped curve. We started eating more after that, but we were eating a lot more before that. And so, it definitely doesn't come from that. So it's, yeah,
Yeah,
it's sort of crazy, but
yeah.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
and industrialization and
Mm,
staying stagnant and all of the other
yeah,
things that can cause stress. Just quickly,
absolutely.
I heard the other
Mhm.
day that 1 in 2 children have been diagnosed with a chronic condition.
Yeah,
Like
wow.
one in one
Just
in two
insane.
kids. Like
Yeah.
it's wild.
Yeah, I
It's
mean, I
wild.
mean, imagine that. Like 1 in 2 badgers have a chronic disease. People are like, well, what the hell is going on, right? Because that's not supposed to happen. 1 in 2 lions have a chronic disease. 1 in 2 lion cubs have a chronic disease. 1 in 2 polar bear cubs have a chronic disease. 1 in 2 elephant babies have I mean, that just doesn't compute. I was like, well, that doesn't happen. And so you'd be like, okay, well, what's going on? They're sick. There's something happening. What is it? Just, it just is what it is. You probably just didn't notice it. Whales were probably always dying of heart attacks at 2. We probably just didn't know about it. And I was like,
It's
mm,
age. It's
yeah,
age.
probably not. Yeah. Lions are just living longer now, Kelsey. So they're getting older, and they're getting diseases of getting older. I mean, except in the zoo, they just live out their whole life, and they don't get any of this stuff, and they're in a little box this size, so they get no exercise, and yet they don't get chronic diseases unless you feed them the wrong thing. And that's where there's signs at the zoo say, don't feed the animals. They get very sick when they don't eat what they're supposed to eat. And then people
Exactly.
think that we're from Mars or something like that, and that doesn't apply to us. It's absolutely it's absolutely insane. But anyway, I digress. Thank you very much, Kelsey. Where can people find you? Can you give us the name of your social media and your YouTube channel so people can find you?
Sure. So I don't actually have a YouTube channel yet, but for
Oh,
my podcast, you can find it
podcast. All
on
right.
Spotify or Apple or any podcast streaming platform. And it's called The Human Theatre. And because it's South African, it's spelled THEATRE, The Human Theatre. And then I'm most active on Instagram, and it's at Kelsey Buchalter. So it's just my name and surname. And then also quite active on LinkedIn. And that's
Perfect.
me.
Lovely. We'll put all those links in the description, and people can find you there. Kelsey, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chaffee.
You're welcome. And thank you all for joining. I hope you found that helpful. If you did, please do hit the like and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. And please share this with anyone you think would be helped by it. See you next time. Hey guys, thank you very much for taking the time out to listen to what I had to say. If you like it, then please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and podcast. And if you're on YouTube, then please hit that little bell and subscribe, and that'll let you know anytime I have a new video out, which should be every week, if not more. And if you could share this with your friends, that would help me get the word out and let me know that you like what I'm doing. Thanks again, guys.